I saw Wicked for Good yesterday, and I hate to say it, but I don't think it's very good. Let's get the good out of the way first before I kind of dive into all my problems with this film. Namely is three key performances here. Of course, there's Cynthia Erivo and Ariana Grande. They were fantastic in the first movie. They were fantastic here. There's two new solos, one for each of those characters put into this film, and they are both phenomenal. And the moments where these two are together are really strong and the best parts of the movie, but you don't get enough of them together. You also have Jeff Goldblum, who I think is a lot better in this sequel than he was in the first one. He wasn't necessarily bad in the first one, but I just feel like the casting of him made a lot more sense with this film. He just got to be a little bit more Jeff Goldblum-y, and it fit so well. The production design, like the first one, I enjoy it. I think that it's a really interesting type of production design. The sets are super fascinating, and just the world it's nice. It's a nice world. The color grading also got fixed, which is great. You know, this is a film that looks a lot better than its predecessor. I'm glad that they took notes from almost every single person that watched this movie and was like, yeah, the color just looks off. This does not feel like Oz. It doesn't feel magical as it's probably supposed to. And then the songs here. Although not as good as the songs in the first film, they are still very strong. The music in this movie is great. I'm a sucker for a good musical. As a musical, this is good. The downside is that as a story, it is not good. It's essentially split into two halves. You have the first half, which is kind of the continuation of Wicked up until the Wizard of Oz story. And then the second half is the Wizard of Oz story and how Wicked, that world and those characters, interact and live in that world and within that story, and just their perspective while Dorothy and her adventure is taking place. In my opinion, the first half is just far too long. You have a lot of moments where characters are going to talk to each other and essentially having the same conversation of I like you, and I kind of like you, but I like this person more. I think you should be good, but wait, no, I can't be good because I like attention, and just yada yada yada. You don't have to be evil, but no, I have to be evil because I want power. Blah, you have multiple scenes establishing those same points. Not a lot really develops in that first hour, but luckily there are so many musical scenes that kind of masquerade over that lack of development where you don't really notice it until once you get to Dorothy showing up, and then all of a sudden the plot it becomes Sonic and goes sprinting through. You don't really see much of the Wizard of Oz story, and not to spoil Wicked, but certain characters in the Wizard of Oz are also characters in Wicked who were really quintessential side characters and had interacted with Elphaba and Glinda and have personal thoughts and feelings for those people. And because of their backstory in Wicked, there is just no way, in my mind, the interactions of then those characters with Dorothy would be the same as they were in the Wizard of Oz movie and story. But this movie just kind of glides over the Wizard of Oz story, and you are kind of forced to believe that everything there happened in the same way it did in the Judy Garland movie. Knowing some of those characters, that group would be so depressed and a lot more of a downer in this film. And I think in order to make the story work and not feel like there are so many holes that you can poke through, we needed to see those characters interacting with Dorothy. But instead, this movie is like afraid of Dorothy. You don't see her face pretty much at all in this film, which I know is the same case in the musical. And I'm going to get to my thoughts on the musical momentarily, but right now I just want to talk about the movie. The movie had a chance to really expand on the musical and build out the plot holes that the musical had and like fill them in. That way, like, the story would make more sense. But instead, the movie just like does the same thing, but it takes longer than the musical. Like, the extra hour and 30 minutes in this movie compared to like Wicked Act 2 is not really warranted at all. I feel like they don't do much with that extra time that actually expands on that story and makes it better. I think it made a lot of sense to have this movie stand on its own because it gave writers and creators a chance to rewrite a very flawed Act 2 of the Wicked musical. But they don't do that. And this is still a very, very flawed story. And this is coming from somebody who loves Act 1 of Wicked, who loved the first movie. I thought the first movie was great, even though it had some coloring issues. The songs were great. The characters were great. I thought the story was fun. And I just kept getting distracted by little moments of like, how did a character end up here? Why are these characters making these decisions when those decisions are stupid compared to more obvious decisions that they could have made? It felt like that things were forced into happening to keep up with the plot of the movie, instead of trying to evolve and grow and do something different. It's pretty disappointing, in my opinion. It felt lazy and felt like a huge disservice to a lot of the people behind this film. Also, John M. Chu's directing was pretty bland and flat and uninteresting. There's also Michelle Yeoh, who's just not great in either of these films, unfortunately. I was really excited about Michelle Yeoh before I saw the first movie, and then she wasn't great in that one. She's not great in this one either. I also thought we would be getting more of Jonathan Bailey. We don't. If anything, I think we might get less of Jonathan Bailey in this movie than we did in the first one. I went into seeing Wicked the musical on the West End so excited because of how much I enjoyed the movie. And Act 1 of Wicked made me cry like multiple times. I was like so overjoyed. And I remember being like, oh my gosh, I wonder what's gonna happen now, because I have no idea what happens after the first act and first movie of Wicked. And then Act 2 happened. And I was just so confused the entire time because none of it really made sense. But I left the musical being like, okay, that is a very rushed 45-minute Act 2. So yeah, Wicked for Good is a 2-star movie for me. Feel free to comment and let me know your thoughts. Am I an idiot? Let me know. I'd love to have a conversation. I'm sad because I was so excited for this movie and hate to be leaving it like this disappointed. I'll see you all in the next review. Take care.